Hello, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Act ASAP podcast. Today, I'm privileged and grateful to have Robert Siciliano here with me because he is a very strong fit because of his work that sits directly at the intersection of leadership, preparedness, personal security, cybercrime, identity theft, and resilience. Go figure, what's up with that? Robert is a securities analyst, author, speaker, and media commentator who has spent decades educating individuals and organizations on preventing fraud, identity theft, scams, and security threats. So, Robert, tell me,
Right.
what brought you here? Something had to happen in your life at some time that made you decided you wanted to dive into that particular pool. What was it?
I speak for a living. I get on stages and platforms and get in front of live audiences and talk about, violence and theft prevention, and that includes in both in the physical and virtual world. And every time I get off the platform, somebody always comes up to me at the end, want to have a conversation, and they always ask me, how did you get into this? Like, what are you, law enforcement, retired, Secret Service, FBI, police, military? I'm like, I literally learned what I know from the streets of Boston. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've
So,
kind of seen it, done it, been there, and over the course of a lifetime, you pick things up, right? And I've always been concerned about my personal security and those all around me. And in the probably early 80s, I was attacked, victim of a multiple attack situation. And around that same time, I met a young girl that was sexually assaulted, and she was the first girl I had a crush on. At the time, I didn't know what sexual assault was. When she told me, I just knew it was bad by the way she said it. So I go home and I ask my dad about the birds and the bees and sexual assault in the same conversation. And I learned about it, and it wasn't cool. And so from that time, since then, I've been focused on making sure that those I come in contact with, they understand what their options are when it comes to personal protection. And as they say, and as you know, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And so being proactive when it comes to personal protection, whether it's violence or theft, means that there's a high likelihood you're going to be victimized. But being proactive means that you're going to reduce that risk and become a tougher target. And that's what I speak to today.
that sounds real good. So it sounds from what I heard that it's just your basically your life structure and growing up where you grew up, you were inundated with these things on such a regular basis that you decided you were going to be a person to do something about
And I can't help myself.
it. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. We need more people like you. So that brings up another question. I do not the same thing, but we're in a similar field. And so I'm just curious, the people that come to you and say, I need your help, or want to be a client of yours, what category are they in? Are they in the proactive leadership category, who they recognize the need and want to do something about it? Or they have already been a victim category and I don't want that to happen again?
I would say it's split right down the middle.
Okay.
Um, Certainly, companies and organizations, individuals, they recognize risk. Sometimes it might be something happens close to them, or they have a near miss, and then they're like, all right, we got to do something about this. That's usually 50% of the time, or the other 50%, something bad happened. We're a little late to the game. We got to do something about it. And, one way or the other, they're all motivated to get something done due to the fact that it was either victimized or a close call. And now I step in and provide them the tools to essentially manage and reduce that risk.
Okay. So based on what you've seen then, are there any misconceptions out there that people might be holding on to, which can be detrimental to them about personal security or digital security or anything like that?
You betcha. Misconceptions are the reason why I even have a job today. Really, truly, because we as humans, it's really simple. We gravitate towards pleasure and away from pain. And pain means recognizing risk. Pain means I could become a victim of, I could be a target of. Pain means the grid could go down and I might be unprepared, right? And so people don't generally want to even think like that at all. They just want to watch Dancing with the Stars and not have to think about these things. Okay. And as a result, when the grid goes down, right, when they become victimized, like, whoa, I didn't know that was going to happen. Nobody told me about. Yes, they did. Yes, you did.
Yes, I'm in agreement with you on that one.
You
That's for
know,
sure.
we generally make a choice and prefer to put the covers over our head. We want to live in denial. Denial is wonderful. Denial lets us avoid threats and anxiety. Like, ignorance truly is bliss. But even those that recognize that bad things can happen, that function in denial, they're not ignorant. They just choose to be ignorant. And that's what gets them into trouble.
Well, the way I look at things, it is all a choice. That's true. We choose to either be proactive or reactive, and because there's no in between there. And unfortunately, I think it's a cultural thing because I remember when I was much younger, as you can tell, I've got a couple days behind me. We were more grown up to be prepared to do something as opposed to be the victim. I see our culture has changed much more to people are now prepared to not to do anything because, as you said, it's so much easier to sit with the cover over your head and then they're the victim, even though they should have seen it coming, right?
Yeah. On top of that, our culture has evolved into one that people just don't take personal responsibility for anything. You know, it's always somebody else's job, somebody else's responsibility. My government's going to protect me. And we like to blame, and not take responsibility to begin with. And all of that leads to the bad actors
Mhm.
taking advantage of us because they see, oh, they don't take responsibility. They just do nothing. Or when something bad happens, we played the victim game. Like, there's just so much of that. That's just so infuriating to me. So don't get me started.
Right. Well, we both sort of live in the same puddle there, so to speak. My military background was we had to be prepared because we didn't want to be repaired because sometimes you weren't going to be able to repair, you know. So that brings up several questions here. So I'm sure listening to us are interested in what we're doing, and they would probably like to have some more information. So if you're looking at security and technology and behavior, what is the best thing for a person to do? Is there a widget or an app I should be able to get, or is it something more internal or personal? And then I'll go get the app and learn how to use it.
Yeah. So the fact that your listeners are listening means that they already are proactive. It means that they do care, which is great. It makes my job a heck of a lot easier. And I tell everybody that I can make you into the top 10% of secure Americans. How do you do that? Well, it's easy. It's easy because 90% of Americans are basically doing nothing. Okay. And I say that it generally starts with like the absolute basics. Certainly I talk about information security, but fundamentally what I speak to is personal security. And
Right.
personal security is violence and theft prevention. And that is both in the physical and virtual world. So let's talk personal security and the physical world. So I think that everybody should understand self-defense. Like, that means that they should literally know how to physically hit and hurt another human being in such a way where you can disable them in the act of self-defense, because that's necessary. Because
Right.
there are like 3% of the world's population essentially might be considered to be sociopaths and psychopaths. These are the hardcore narcissists that truly have no shame. They don't experience empathy, sympathy, guilt, or remorse. They are the predators amongst us. They are the wolves. They are the lions. We are the gazelles and the rabbits. So self-defense, knowing how to protect yourself and physically disable another human being in the act of self-defense, I think is necessary. So now, before something bad happens, there are all kinds of classes out there. They're called fast self-defense, impact self-defense, and model mugging. These 3 different programs are designed to teach you a technique called adrenal stress training. And adrenal stress training teaches you how to fight under adrenal stress, how to physically hurt and disable somebody pretty quickly so you can escape to a safe place. That's number 1. Number 2, everybody should lock their doors. Not because you worry, not because you live in fear, because it is the smart thing to do. You should just lock your doors. because you are vulnerable at 3 a.m. And people say, well, I live in a safe neighborhood. Yeah, I'm glad you feel that way, but there's no such thing as a safe neighborhood. Safe is an absolute, like baseball. You're either out or you're safe. And safe means nothing bad has or ever will happen here. And that's just, not true. So lock your doors. And then in addition to that, install a home security system. Why? Because there are between 1.5 and as many as 2 million burglaries every single year. That's between 15 and 20 million burglaries in the next decade. So locking your doors and installing a home security system is just the smart thing to do. And then from there, personal security is also protecting your identity. What does that mean? Like your social security number, right? So your social security number is the key to the kingdom. So certainly there's identity theft protection that you can pay a small monthly fee for. I have AAA Plus, which gives me free credit monitoring through Experian, which is great. Other than that, get a credit freeze. A credit freeze is a tool that's available through the 3 major credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, and Equifax. For free, you can lock down your credit report. So if and when a bad actor gets access to your social security number, which, we've had 300 billion of our sensitive records leaked online, 300 billion names, addresses, phone numbers, email addresses, social security numbers, 300 billion. So the bad actors I've had criminal hackers email me my own social security number. Hey, security guy, here's your social, haha. Basically flexing their muscles, showing me how cool they are. And I could care less because my social security number on my credit report is frozen. I froze it like in 2008. And whenever I want to get a new line of credit, I just temporarily thaw my credit. Just pull up my mobile phone, pull up the 3 major credit bureaus apps, and then temporarily thaw. It's as simple as that. And it refreezes like the next day if I choose to do so.
So what I hear you saying is there are tools out there for people. They just have to either hunt them down, want them, use them, and then the key issue is take action, right?
Yeah. So if you're digital security, start with a free credit freeze through the 3 major credit bureaus, Experian, TransUnion, Equifax. And that is the beginning of the process. And from there, it's really simple to change up your passcode. So of those 300 billion records, about 20 billion of them are our passwords, meaning that in the past 20, 30 years, billions and billions of our credentials have been either leaked or hacked. And so 20 billion of those leaked records are in fact your passwords. I know this because, I can go online to various resources and search all of this stuff, and it's right there in front of you. Anybody can find the information. And by changing up your passcodes, what you're doing is you're making the leaked passcodes essentially useless to the thief. Like getting a credit freeze is making your social useless to the thief, all right? In addition to changing up your passcodes, you can never use the same passcode twice. Why? Because hackers continue to hack, and there are as many as 3,000 data breaches every single year. And that being the case, it's just a matter of time until that one password that you use on 50 accounts eventually is going to be exposed. And if you're using one passcode across 50 accounts and it's exposed, that means all 50 accounts are vulnerable. It's really just simple physics. And then
So
from
it's just
there,
a matter of being proactive, taking action, right?
yeah. So when you freeze your credit and then change up your passcodes, to effectively manage those passcodes, you want to use a password manager. Now, there's dozens of password managers out there. RoboForm is one, 1Password is another, Dashlane, Bitwarden. These are all good password managers. And a password manager essentially makes it easy to change up your passcodes, to manage all those passwords you're going to need, and to automatically fill out all the various websites when you visit them, your username and your passcode really easily. Okay, so password manager. On top of that, you want to set up 2-factor authentication for everything. So 2-factor authentication, of course, is every single time you log in, you get a one-time passcode sent to your mobile phone or some type of an authenticator app. Essentially, that 2-factor authentication is designed to make any exposed passcodes additionally useless to the thief. Now, once you enable 2-factor authentication, that doesn't mean that you need 2-factor authentication every single time you log into every single website. It means certain critical websites are more or less utilizing 2-factor authentication either sometimes or every time. Like I only use two-factor authentication logging into my Gmail once a month. And after a month, Gmail says, okay, the cookie is expired. It's time to re-authenticate you, which is fine. But every single time I log into PayPal or Venmo, I need to re-authenticate with two-factor authentication, which I'm perfectly fine with. Okay.
Right.
So in general, you do the basics: lock your doors, home security system, self-defense, password manager, change up your passcodes, two-factor authentication. You do those things, you're in the top 10%.
So when I'm dealing with people, we talk about one, the digital security and two, the physical security. The majority of the people I talk to are ambivalent about their physical security, but they're more aware of the digital security, particularly with AI out there right now, and all the AI bad players. So, what are some of the tools people can use to prevent that besides self-awareness?
Yeah, so AI has truly stripped away the clumsy red flags of traditional fraud, right? In the past, criminals relied on blunder force phishing, essentially mass blasting emails riddled with scammer grammar. Today, generative AI allows for high precision impersonation at scale. Criminals use what we call neural puppetry to create basically like fake perfect lies by scraping just seconds of audio or video from social media. And they use voice cloning and deepfake video to impersonate a trusted source like a spouse or a CEO, an attorney, politicians, with really at this point 100% accuracy. And what this does is it weaponizes our biological default to trust. The problem here is that there really isn't a single source or tool or an app, anything really, that you can use to determine, is this a deep fake? Is this a voice clone? And so forth. There really isn't a single tool available yet. What it boils down to is that this is a technology problem that eventually may or may not be solved with technology. I don't know yet. Okay. The jury's still out, so to speak. We are potentially a year or two or three or five or more away from actually determining with consumer-based tools, is it real or is it fake?
Right.
I know that the Android mobile phone may be launching with some technology in the near future that can help you determine a voice clone. Okay, that might help. That being said, I think what's really most important is that you and I are able to effectively recognize when something seems not right, okay, when something seems off. So there's a strategy that I call the AAA protocol. And the AAA protocol basically starts with becoming what I call a strategic human firewall. So I'm guessing, like, to a degree, you're a strategic human firewall already. You're already looking for it. You're already anticipating risk. You already see it. You already look at the phone calls and the emails and the text messages and go, yeah, no, that's BS, right? Because you've been looking for it for so long, you've developed like an understanding, a mindset to recognize risk effectively, okay? Many of us do that. Maybe 10% of us. 90% don't. So by becoming a strategic human firewall, you develop a permanent mindset that basically shifts us from, being a liability to being a proactive human sensor network. And the foundation for this firewall is what I call the AAA protocol. All right. AAA protocol,
Okay.
again, it's something that you and I probably do every day, meaning it's your break the fake playbook. All right. So it starts with analyze and then authenticate and then act. So what does this mean? So analyze means recognize, say, the manufactured urgency. You get a phone call, email, text, and it's like, oh, you've got to do this now or else. Your license is going to get suspended. You're not going to get access to your bank account. You're going to lose all your money, whatever. Manufactured urgency. The moment a request demands secrecy or immediate action, it's trying to get your blood boiling. It's trying to get you to emotionally react and respond. Okay? Your brain moves into emotional reaction. That's where you do not want to be. Take a breath, move back into analytical thinking. What's really happening here? So instead of like getting all emotional and reacting because of the deep fake audio or video, be like, okay, is this really my daughter calling me? Not too long ago, a woman, like, she got a phone call from a guy who says, I have your daughter. She's been kidnapped. Here she is. And in the background, Mom, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for this to happen. And it was her daughter's voice. And the mom is like, okay, what do I got to do? What's happening? What did you do to my daughter? And the guy's like, listen, I'm going to kill her unless. And he laid out a plan for her. And for the next 5 hours, this poor woman went all about town. She went to her bank. She went to the credit union. She went to the ATM. She went to Western Union. She went to MoneyGram. She went all over town. And everything she did was she wired money, wired money, wired money, wired money. Every single penny she had. At the end of the 5 hours, they said, okay, we're going to meet you at this grocery store for the handoff to give the daughter back. She goes to the grocery store. The daughter didn't show. She calls the daughter on the phone. Where are you? Where are you? I'm at work, Mom. What's going on? Why are you screaming? What do you mean you're at work? I'm at work. I've been at work all day long. What's the problem? What are you screaming about? You didn't get kidnapped? No, Mom, I didn't get kidnapped. I'm at work. What's happening? All the mother had to do was call her daughter. Like, that's all she had to do is call her daughter. And we've become so reliant on all the various technologies we have access to. We just want to believe that the voice on the phone is the voice on the phone. The person in the video is the person in the video. We want to believe that what the words say in the email is real and so forth. We just want to believe, we want to trust. And I call that trust. I call that the human blind spot. And the human blind spot is ultimately what gets us into trouble. And everybody possesses the human blind spot, truly, right? So we are what is considered an interdependent species. And as being interdependent, that means we are dependent upon each other for our survival. Man needs woman, woman needs man to survive, to procreate, to further the species. Without each other, we would just, evaporate. And the basis of being interdependent means that we got to trust each other. That's it. That's our foundation. We want to trust. And I call that the human blind spot. That psychological instinct to trust each other, to trust the familiar. It is that cognitive gap where biological trust overrides suspicion, leaving the door wide open for all kinds of fraud, including, of course, AI-enhanced deception. Think of it as biological default to trust and the psychological shortcuts or the heuristics the criminals use to bypass human logic and to trigger human emotion. Think of it as biological impulse versus intellectual understanding. It's that internal conflict between our evolved survival instincts, what's real and what's fake. And criminals perfectly understand this. And most of us don't at all. We're using the same passcodes across multiple accounts. We're not using two-factor authentication. Many of us don't even lock our doors. We've never taken a self-defense course. We don't have a home security system because we kick back and go, yeah, if they're going to break in, they're going to break in. What are we going to do? As if they're using fatalism to justify truly just functioning in denial. It can't happen to me. And we do nothing. And that's what gets into trouble.
Absolutely. It's interesting. That's a very intriguing story you brought up. I bet you've seen a lot of things like that throughout your career. So I'm not going to ask you for more of those stories because that was just touched right in the head. But so tell me now, you brought up a lot of interesting things here, but if somebody was listening and they had at least one thing they could do to protect themselves, their family, their loved ones from whatever, what would that be?
Well, I think listening to this podcast is the first step, right?
Right. Thank you.
From there, begin to consume more information about reducing risk. It really is that simple. I don't do any of this stuff because I live in fear or I worry. I sleep for 7.5 hours pretty much every single night. And if I wake up for any reason, it's because I got to pee. And that's it. I sleep good. And the point is, I don't worry about any of this stuff, right? Because I have systems in place. I got the Belgian Malinois by the edge of the bed, right? I got the home security system, right? I have the password manager, right? I've taken and taught, and my daughters have taken self-defense classes. Like we do all the fundamentals. And I continue to brush up. I continue to consume. I'm taking a tactical defense training this weekend. I'm signed up, right? And so I continue to invest in myself and in my family because 97% of all people are good by their nature, and 3% are not. And those 3%, they make a lot of noise. So
Well,
continue to
yes.
consume, they do. And so continue to consume good information like this. And before you know it, like you are essentially a pseudo expert. And I call this the kitchen table effect. You're taking what you learned and you're taking it home and teaching it to your family, cementing those lessons for life. That's how it works.
So would you agree with me that I kept this little premise here that we never rise to the occasion. We always fall to our level of preparation.
Oh, without a doubt. And again, like we already discussed, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. And I'm constantly like looking at my own systems in place, and I'm constantly updating my go bag and making sure that like when the time comes, like I'm good to go. And I'm constantly like looking at the resources I have at my disposal as times change, as things change, as the world continues to be on fire. Like if you're not paying attention to recognize what your options are, then you're just behind. And why be behind? Like, again, I don't worry about any of this stuff. Worry is awful. Who wants to worry?
I know
I
it's
just like,
painful.
it's
It's
painful.
no
I don't
fun.
worry about any of this stuff. Right, right. But I think it through because look at, I got a couple girls and a honey, and I got a dog, and I've got probably 6 months of dog food because if something bad does happen, like we end up on the road and we've got the dog with us and we end up in the woods, like the first thing you eat is the dog. I mean, that's the worst. That's the worst thing you could possibly say. But yeah, that's what people do. So I got enough food for the dog and for the family and water, right? And like all the other things that you need to do to survive, both at home and out, on the terrain.
Okay, so I'm not going to have to ask you what you're going to do if something suddenly happens tomorrow. You sounds like you've got it wired. So, but I want to reiterate what you've been telling us here throughout this whole conversation is not only do you need to get prepared, you need to pre-prepare and you need to keep learning because if we don't test those skills and grow with those skills, they're going to go follow at some point, right?
Every bit of that is an insurance policy. Look, all of the go bags and the bins that I have that are full of extra medicine and dried foods and all of the backup water that I have and all of the, frankly, ammunition and firearms and all the training is all stuff that I hope to never, ever use. It's
Absolutely.
all insurance policies. I plan on passing all of it down to my girls, every single bit of it, every bit of it, and them to their own families, and continue to recycle and repurpose and update and just keep it moving, and hope that I die and have never used it.
Exactly. I concur with you there. When I take a family under my wing and prepare them, I do tell them, I hope you never have to use it. And unfortunately, some say, well, that's a good reason for me not to do it then. And we go, oh my God, I should have kept my mouth shut. But you know exactly what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah. Like it's like 100 times. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. I'd rather have it and not use it than need it and not have it. Like it's as simple as that, right? And I will always think like that. And I think that once you do that, like all that medication that you've stocked up on, all that food that you've stocked up on, it does in the end, at least for me, make me sleep a lot more soundly.
Absolutely. Well, I understand exactly where you're going there because I sort of live in that same side of the fence. So we're almost coming up in time. So if there's one thing that you've mentioned or something you even haven't mentioned that you would like the public, the listeners to understand and recognize and take to heart, what would that be?
Um, we've covered an awful lot of ground here, and I really appreciate that. It doesn't really matter where in the world you are. I think one of the most important things that you have more than anything else, I think, is a storage of water, right? Like I have two 55-gallon drums going at all times. that, I'm basically every, year or two, I'm draining and refilling. I have various, solutions that I put inside of the water to keep it safe and drinkable and so forth. I think having backup water, like if you have that, then you're already thinking ahead and everything else will fall into place. Because like water actually is one of the easiest things you could do, but it's like for you to actually start doing that thing first is kind of the hardest things to do. Like at least that's what I've found. You do that one thing, I think everything else will fall into place.
Well, I'm in concurrence with you about the hydration. You need to be hydrated or you're going to die quick. I'm going to share with you, even though this is about you, what I tell people to buy is you can go buy 6-gallon cases of water at the grocery store. That's the easiest way to start. Get the couple, 3, 4, 6-gallon cases and just rotate them through the household so they stay fresh. That's how I do it. I keep like 5 cases over in the corner and I keep rotating them. So
So easy.
it is easy. It's just a matter of getting up and doing it. So tell us one more time, if people want to get a hold of you, where do they go?
So if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, just search Robert Siciliano on the Google, Siciliano. Otherwise, my website is protectnowllc.com, protectnowllc.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much for Robert. I appreciate your time and your generosity for coming and sharing your information with me. I think it's truly valuable, and I really do hope that the people listening to it pick up something that they can take and use immediately. And with that said, I'm going to call it a day. Take care, Robert.
Thank you so much.
All right. Out here.